What's up, peeps? Your boy Ricky Funez. Welcome to another episode of Tengoose Boxing Talks. Today we have a special guest and one of my very good friends. Since I've known him since I was 15 years old, Mr. One of the biggest referees, Jack Reese. Jack, welcome.
Ricky, thank you for having me here, and it's a pleasure to be here, man.
Jack, well, let me tell the people first who Jack Reese is. Well, me, how I know Jack. In 1989, Joe Goosen recruited me from the streets here in Van Nuys. And behind the gym, there's this famous fire station, Station
39.
39. Station 39. And I didn't think much about it, but, I used to see this white boy come in with boxing shoes, and I would see him ask Joe that he wanted to practice refereeing, the sparring. And years later, he became one of the biggest referees. So Jack, see, people don't know who Jack Reese is. They see him in big fights, the Fury, and all these championship fights. Jack, tell us about you, Jack. Tell us. I know that you box or you train as an amateur. Did you ever turn pro?
No, you kidding? I didn't. I lacked the talent to turn pro, so I stayed in my lane.
What got you into boxing, Jack? But tell us a little bit more about you, where you come from, and then let's get into the boxing.
Yeah, sure. So I was born in Brooklyn, New York. I grew up in right near Poli Malignaggi in Bensonhurst initially. And then when I was a kid, unfortunately, I was 8 years old. My father passed away. And my mother had to make some changes, and she moved us just to the end of where Coney Island ended or began, whatever way you look at it, right across the street from the Cyclone roller coaster, the oldest wooden roller coaster in the world.
Really?
Yeah. And so I grew up right outside of Coney Island. It was a great place to grow up. And my father, when we were growing up, when he was alive, I don't know what it is. I can show you some pictures afterward. I got pictures of him in 1928 on the beach, yoked up, cut up with a beef eater, a wife beater T-shirt, in a boxing stance. And I've got pictures of him with really famous boxers of the era.
Of that era.
And my mom don't really know what it was all about. And I've been trying to find the history. I just haven't found it yet.
1928, you said, Jack?
Yes.
Wow.
So, but he always, he used to show me and my older brother Rick how to fight and stuff. And he always would encourage us. He'd put socks on our hands and we would, pound each other and stuff. And just boxing was always a part of my life growing up. And I always had the love for it. And then when I was 9 or 10, a gentleman came into our lives. He was my brother's baseball coach. His name was Alan Rosenblum. And he was a big ice hockey fan. New York Rangers, And he asked my mom, he says, hey, can I take the boys to a hockey game? And he took me to the Madison Square Garden, and man, I walk out into this arena, it's loud, they're playing music, and people are screaming, pounding on the floor, and the first game I ever saw, this guy named Vic Hadfield.
Vic
Hadfield. He was on this Ranger line called the gag line, G-A-G.
The gag line.
Goal a game, because that line scored a goal each game between them. Really great line. He scored 50 goals, whatever, but he scored 2 goals that night, and he had a fight. And I just remember watching these guys on the ice fighting, and I fell in love with hockey too.
Yeah.
And I started playing hockey growing up, and I was like 15, and I was getting into a league that was going to be much older guys with me, and I really didn't have the skills. So I used to goon it up a lot and drop the gloves with guys and, do things I had to do to make the team.
Yeah.
And I wanted to learn how to fight better. I got scruffs growing up and stuff like that. Can't help it in Brooklyn. It's much like Van Nuys.
You got to defend yourself. You got to take care of yourself.
Yeah, you can't walk out of your house without preparing mentally. You might get in a fight. Used to wear my belts to the side, tight. My shoes were nice and tight in case I had to run. Yeah. Whatever. It's the way you grow up.
So you're a street guy then, Jack.
Listen, fatherless kid from Coney Island. I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
No complaints, but we all have humble beginnings.
Of
so a lot of us do. And us with the humble beginnings gravitate towards boxing. I don't know why, but it ends up that way. Anyway, I wanted to find a boxing gym to learn how to use my hands better to fight against these older guys.
Yeah.
And Gleason's gym was like a 30-minute drive, ride on a train for me.
30-minute drive?
30-minute train
on
ride.
the train, right? Okay.
Yeah. And my mother said, I absolutely do not want you on the trains 9 and 10 o'clock at night at 15 years old alone. And she, busted my chops and stuff. So I found a martial arts studio by this sensei, this martial artist named Louis Neglia, 10th degree black belt. He works with Dana White all the time now. He has the Ring of Combat shows that he puts on in Atlantic City and stuff like that. Many of his fighters get fed right into the UFC right now.
Really?
I stayed with him about 8 years, man.
And when you come up, I'm sure, have you ever worked a UFC fight, Jack, before? Ever?
I did MMA.
Really?
I didn't fight MMA.
Yeah, but you referee MMA.
John, that's another story. Me and John McCarthy are very close friends. And my sons played hockey. My oldest, Joseph, who you met, was playing travel hockey. And one day I go to watch him at the rink. And it was early. It was like 20 years ago, something like that. MMA was just kind of getting started. And I walk in, I'm sitting down, and I look over, and I see John McCarthy sitting there. I didn't know him. It was Valencia,
Yeah.
So I walked over, and I go, excuse me. And he's probably heard it 1,000 times. I said, you John McCarthy? He goes, yeah. I said, I'm Jack Reese. I'm a referee also in boxing. He didn't know who I was,
Yeah.
And we developed a great friendship, and he is the most brilliant combative sports mind of anybody I've ever met. If you can get him to sit down here with you.
I met him a couple of times, even in Valencia as well. But when you were talking about the Asian guy, you were talking about Asian guy prior right now.
My instructor?
Your instructor.
Italian guy, Louis Neglia.
Okay. Did you ever bump into him? So you say he worked with Dana White.
Yeah, I've kept in contact with him. But anyway, I'm jumping back and forth. John and I became great friends, and I'll get into that later.
Yeah.
But with Louis Neglia, I stayed with him for like 8 years. I was a second-degree black belt with him.
What?
Had a decent little run at very few, but full contact kickboxing matches. But I got to tell you, John Kenny and Tom DeLuca and all these guys, John Caruso, all these guys that we were in the gym, like here, we're friends for life because we beat the shit out of each other. It was wars in the gym. We didn't know how to go half speed. Everything was a war.
Yeah.
You come out lumped up and you're back the next day for the same thing. Great stuff.
Did you ever go to the Jet Center, Jack, even though we were close? Did you really?
I did. I'll tell you what happened with that. So I was, anyway, let me do the progression.
Yeah.
So I stayed with him for the 8 years, and I realized I was 23 and I was still with him, and all my friends had moved on and got real jobs and had 3-piece suits, and I was still wearing holy sneakers and going from job to job. And I'm telling you, man, one day on my 23rd birthday, I was laying in bed and I prayed to God, and I said, man, there's got to be something better than this for me, because I always felt I needed to do something good, the right thing. And I had a kickboxing match for Louis Neglia that it kept getting pushed off because the opponent kept falling out, which is, normal and stuff like that. And I trained quite hard, way harder than I needed to, because it kept falling out for this 2-minute round kickboxing match. I hurt the instep of my right foot. I kicked the guy and I hit him on the elbow with my foot. I was going to his body. And I said, you know what, I got to take a little vacation. When it was done, everything was cool. And I used to go to Florida because I had a girlfriend down there. But I said, nah, let me try California. So I came out here for 2 weeks and I never left.
That's it.
Yeah, I never left. It was God's hand. It was
23 years old now here in California.
With shit in my pocket. No money in my pocket.
Yeah.
And I started hustling around for jobs. I just taking anything I can get. And my friend's brother, my friend Scott Oppenheimer, his brother, Gary, is a very wealthy guy, a very successful man. He bought closeouts. You know what the closeouts are?
The trailers or with clothes?
No, it's something similar. You're close. So like when, say Calvin Klein has 150,000 shirts, right?
Yeah.
And it's the end of the season and the shirt is a summer shirt and they got 30,000 left that they can't get rid of. These guys like Gary, a jobber, comes in and buys them all up for pennies on the dollar.
Correct.
So this guy had jogging suits that were like Nike jogging suits, 2-piece jogging suits. You remember the Broadway?
Yeah.
They sold in the Broadway
really
40 years ago for $50. So they would be 200 now. So he bought them all up, and he tells me and his brother, "Hey, I got these things. You guys go sell them." So they were big. They weren't the medium, large, and extra large. That was the normal sizes.
Yeah.
So they were low. small, extra small, double X,
That's
and double X, triple X, 4X. And I had the big ones left. And I said, where can I sell these things? I said, firemen, big guys. Let me start going to fire stations.
Wow.
And I started going to fire stations, and I'd walk in and I'd say, hey, I got these jogging suits if anybody wants them. And I walked into 39s.
Right here.
Right in the backyard, right? And I throw them on the kitchen table, and they get on a microphone. They go, hey, guys, we got this guy here selling jogging suits. They all come down, and they're buying them, and I put a little index card on the thing if they ever wanted any more back. And they caught a run. You know, an alarm went off while I was there, and it was like an orchestra, man. The bells are going off. The guys are sliding the poles. Guys are running out from different rooms. The lights are turning on. These doors open up, and these, you know, athletic big guys jumping on these rigs and hauling ass out the. You've seen it 1,000 times because you
used to take me on rides.
Oh yeah, we can tell that story.
But go ahead.
I said, man, I'd like to be part of something like that because they're doing a great job. They're all athletic, you know, guys that do a hard job and stuff like that. When they got back, I said, what do you guys do? And they started with this guy named JJ, Jimmy Johnson, showed me around the firehouse and started telling me everything they did. And I said, wow, so how do I get involved? How do I learn how to do it? He goes, well, first you got to put an interest card in with the city. I said, what do I do? He goes, you go to City Hall. I said, oh, man, where's that? And he opens the doors.
And was
goes,
right there.
He goes, that's City Hall right there in Van Nuys. I go, you serious? And I walked across the street, and I filled out applications for every city job I can get because I didn't have any job.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate. It was 1979.
Wow.
And, you know, they had a hiring freeze in the city. And when I happened to step in, they were starting to ramp up hiring with everybody.
Yeah.
Department of Water and Power.
Everything.
PD, everything. And I was fortunate, man. I got on with LAPD, LA Department of Airport and Harbor, and the fire department all in the same
Wow.
year. But, I stayed with
fire.
I was a cop for a short time. I don't know if I ever told you that.
No, you never.
You might have. I wanted to keep it from you because I didn't want you to think I'd arrest your ass.
Oh.
I went to Rio Hondo Police Academy, and I was a police officer, the very first police officer class for the actually sworn-in gun-carrying police at LAX.
Wow.
And then I was out in the field for a month or so, and the fire department came a knocking at the door, and I couldn't wait to go do that because of the schedule and everything else with it. So I switched and went back through Fire Academy and did 31 years with LA Fire.
Wow.
And then during that time, we used to do you're involved with it.
Yeah.
You've seen it. We used to train the guys here.
Yeah.
I got involved with the LAPD versus LAFD and LA County Sheriffs, and I fought in 1986 against the sheriffs.
How'd you do in that fight, Jack?
You know, it was such a pleasure beating this shit out of a sheriff. I can't even tell you. But he got me with some good shots, but I ended up winning too, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Make sure you share that picture with us so we could let people know, the fans see who you are.
Okay.
Back then. So, Jack, now in 1986, did you fight for Station 39?
I was actually, no, it was a smaller thing than that. They didn't have people in each station.
Okay.
You represented the Los Angeles Fire Department. Because it was only a team of 10, 12 guys or gals at the time.
Yeah. So, Jack, I know you when I think I was 14 or 15 years old when I really met you the first time in the early 1992 or 93, I think.
It was 92.
92, when I really met you. And I will see you come in because the station is right behind the gym. I will see you come in. I was with boxing shoes and your sweats. And you will ask Joe, hey, can I referee? Because I want to be a referee. And Joe will let you be the ref, the sparring guys like Gabriel and Jeremy Williams. I still remember.
And Michael Nunn. And what was the heavyweight? George McIntyre. It was some funny.
Man, there were.
And Rocky Papelli.
Rocky Papelli. All them. Frankie Lyles.
Yeah, there were some funny characters in this gym.
Oh, yeah. So you will come in and practice, Jack. Did you ever imagine in the future that you will become one of the biggest refs? But first, before you tell me that, Jack, how hard was it to become or to get in your foot into being a referee?
I want to go back and I want to praise God. And, I got to tell you something. I'm a firm believer in God. And again, it was God's hand.
Oh, same here.
So I met you guys in 1992. But prior to that, I've always loved boxing.
Yeah.
I used to go to Reseda Country Club, go to the Forum, watch the fights, Olympic Auditorium,
Wow.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
And also I had seasons tickets to the Kings. And at 30 years old, I said, man, I really would love to be a referee in boxing or work in boxing or do something in the NHL. Maybe I could be the guy that opens the penalty box door. You know, they wear the suits and stuff like that. And, you know, it's weird about what we do to ourselves, but I talked myself out of it when I was like a 30-ish.
Yeah.
And I didn't pursue it. And then at about, I think it was 35, I promoted to the rank of captain on the fire department. And this is where I say it's God's hand. They assigned me to my first firehouse as a captain right 39. There at 39s. The same place that got me started as a firefighter. And what happens, I know you guys were back here. I used to take my radio, hook up my radio so I could listen in case we get a run. Yeah. I would tell the guys, I'm going to be in the backyard, across the backyard at the boxing gym. And they started coming over with me.
Yeah, I remember.
Quite a few. And I got to tell you, it was the reception that I got from Joe, from Greg, Joe Goose and Greg Goose and you and all the guys, the way you guys were like welcoming us all into, you know, your house.
Yeah.
So we brought you over to our house and stuff like that. And then I really developed that deep love for boxing.
Yeah.
Got to know Raf and Gabe real well.
They were the best.
Went to their,
Gabriel and Rafael Relas. He's talking about Gabriel and Rafael Relas.
I should have said that. But, you know, in this company, I know what you're talking about.
A lot of people say Raf and Gabriel. So they were very good friends. Well, they're still really good friends of ours.
These are the champions that came out of Tengoose Boxing, some of the champions. And, you know, I got to realize traveling around, you know, at fights and stuff like that and seeing you guys, you're just regular guys like me, and maybe I can do this. Sure. And I decided to start pursuing it. I did not want to reach out and ask any favors of Dan or Joe, especially, you know, I couldn't. So I started pursuing it on my own. And you say, how hard is it?
Oh, yeah.
My father wasn't a referee like some other guys, and I didn't have anybody in the business and stuff like that.
You work your way. The
only way I knew how to do it, man.
Yeah.
And I'm not the only guy who's had to do it this way. There's quite a few of us. I just, you know, put my head to my nose to the grind and worked at it. I called the athletic commission. In fact, let me tell you a great story. In that time, there was no internet, and I didn't know where to even begin. Mm-hmm. So I called this guy who was helping run the fire department boxing team, and I said, hey, I would like to be a ref. How do you think you get started, you know, being a ref? And he goes, well, you got to call the athletic commission. I said, what's that? And he's telling me, you know, all that stuff. And the only athletic commission that I knew from television was Nevada. Yeah. So I didn't know whatever. So I go to the phone book and I look up Nevada. Yeah, I mean, in those days, there was no internet. And I knew who Mark Ratner was, because he was always handling the controversy in all the fights in Vegas, that, you know, normal stuff. Yeah. So I said, let me call this guy and see if I can talk to his secretary and send him a resume. And I dialed the phone number, and it was 1994. I mean, so when I dialed it, I was expecting to have a secretary pick up the phone, right?
And it was him.
Phone, Nevada State Athletic Commission, Mark Ratner. Ricky, I was excited like a kid on his first date, man. Yeah. I had him on the phone, and for 2.5 minutes, I just rattled on about myself. I was so excited to talk to this guy. And when I was done, I was like breathing heavy. He was so polite. He never said a word through the whole thing. And he goes, you know, Jack, it sounds like you do have some qualifications that might make you a decent referee. He goes, but why are you calling Nevada? You live in California. And Mark Ratner kids me about that to this day. And he turned me on to the California State Athletic Commission.
Dean Lohi at that time?
Yes, Rob Lynch, Dean Lohi, and some other guy, Dean Lohis. And it was years before, actually, their reign. It was 1995 or 6. And I called up, and the funniest thing, it's a small world. I call up, and the lady that answers the phone is Cara Chacon, Bobby Chacon's niece. Yeah. She was the executive secretary, I guess, for the athletic commission. And I started chatting with her and about it. And she says, well, there's no openings right now, but they're planning on having a class someday. So for 2 years, every couple of weeks, I was calling and bothering them, and just to make sure they had my name, I sent a resume with a certified letter with a signature, so I knew they got it. Yeah. You know, and I would bother all the time. And in late 1997, 2 years later, they said, yeah, they're having the class. And that's another story, but I won't go into it. But I was one of the people fortunate enough to get in. 104, maybe I'm off. Maybe it was 108, 100, whatever. Well over 100 of us got stuffed into one of the first meeting we had, stuffed into a small room at the LA Boxing. And the 4 referees were there that gave the class. Marty Denkin, Pat Russell, Lou Filippo, and Larry Rosadilla.
Wow.
And they had guest speakers. Lots of different people came in. Gennaro Hernandez spoke to us, just, from a fighter's perspective. Yeah. And it was it was a 3-year program.
What?
1 year of classroom every 2 to 3 weeks. You miss one class, you're out. In fact, I got to give them credit. I'm not bad-mouthing anybody, but there were some sons and daughters and bankers and cousins of referees, and they thought they had, in the tank. Richard Steele's kid got kicked out. He didn't show up, and they were serious. They booted his ass. I don't know what he's doing now, but he didn't make it. And when the thing was all said and done, 9 of us made it.
Wow.
And it was really cool. So the first year was in classroom, and then you broke off with one of those refs, and you started reffing the sessions in the sparring sessions in the gym. And after that first year, at the end of it was written tests every time you were there, quizzes. At the end, there was one big written test, and there was a physical test where they had 2 guys faking as the boxers, and you're the referee. You're in a room. They go, okay, you're starting the fight off, or you're in the second round now, whatever it was. Yeah. And they put you in, and you had to do your thing. If you got bumped, you were out. They eliminated a lot of guys who just got bumped into by the fighters.
Really?
Yeah.
So you were not allowed to get bumped at all?
Nope. And the jerk who I was in the ring with chased me for like 30 seconds.
To try to get you, try to get you out.
Couldn't catch him. He was too heavy, So anyway, I was fortunate enough to pass that part of it with Max DeLuca and Ray Corona, Tony Krebs, Jerry Cantu. We were the guys who were fortunate enough to make it. And the second part of it was they assigned you 1 fight per month as a ref and judge, because in California, when you ref, you're expected to judge as well. And you took both classes in the class. Yeah. And you got 1 fight, and the referees of that night and the judges chipped in a couple of bucks, and they paid us $50
for
the night.
That was pretty cool. Fun and entertaining. You're getting paid for what you love doing.
Yes.
Not a lot of money, but it's fun. You're doing it for the love.
And we were on probation and all that stuff. Anything we did, we can get canned that we didn't do right. And some guys fell off out of that too. And then the 3rd year was, we're going to work you into the rotation as we see fit. But I signed the waiver, we all did, saying they have the right to let us go without us questioning it.
At all.
And then I was fortunate enough, me and the guys I mentioned and some other people, fortunate enough that 26 years later, here we are.
Wow.
But Jack, it was work, Ricky. It was work.
I'm sure it is. Like I always say, back in that time, it's work. Now it's people have a lot of privilege, have a lot of connections to get in a certain way. But Jack, going back to when you mentioned judging and refereeing at the same time, what do you base off when you judge a fight? What is it that you look for? Because sometimes when we see fights, and a lot of fans say, whoa, what's wrong? Is he blind? He couldn't score that fight correct? What is it that you guys, as a judge, what is it that you look for? What is it what are you basing off points on?
So there's a historical criteria, and people could find it. There's an old book. It's still a great book by this guy named Tom Kaczmarek, an old-time judge, hundreds and maybe thousands of fights. He put a little pamphlet together. It's called You Be the Judge by Tom Kaczmarek. You can find it on the internet. And it goes over the 4 judging criteria that we use to judge that fight. The first one is effective punching. What effect did those punches have on the opponent, and who landed more effective punches? That's the way you start it. If you have a clear winner of that criteria, this guy was way more effective, you don't have to go to the other criteria. He won the round on effective punching.
Can you give me a little detail of what, so the fans that might not understand, what is an effective punch, so they could have understanding when they see a fight?
Great question.
Yeah.
So an effective punch is a punch that lands and has effect on the opponent. it lands with the legal part of the glove. The only part of the glove you're allowed to hit with is the front of the glove. You and I see, some fighters bitch slapping with the inside of the glove. That is not a legal punch. We don't call knockdowns when they kind of cup them or they throw this and they hit with the laces or the inside of the glove because it's not the legal part of the hand. But the effective punch lands with the legal part of the glove and has an effect on the fighter. The effect doesn't have to be a cut eye or a swollen eye. If it stops him in his track, if it takes him off his game plan, if it sends him back a foot, if it allows the fighter that's throwing the punch to make that guy reset so he can get out defensively. All that had effect on that fighter. It was more effective. It was effective.
Yeah.
And in your head, you should have a scale, the way I was taught. It's probably more than one way to do it. You have a scale in your head. You're not counting punches, but you're watching the bout. And as the guy's landing punches, he's going up on the scale. And when this guy scores, it comes down. At the end of that round, your scale shouldn't be even. It should be one guy is more effective. But just so the way the judging works, if you happen to be even at the end of that round on punches, you go to the next criteria, which is effective aggressiveness. So what that would mean is which guy dictated the pace of the fight, fought where he wanted to fight, stay, like I don't want to be in the corners. If I'm constantly get myself out of the corner, putting you in the corner, and controlling the bout, he's the effective aggressor. If you can't figure out between effective punches and aggression, you go to the next criteria, and that's ring generalship. And if you can't figure it out with that, it's effective defense. Rarely do you ever get down that far. You can usually do it on the first two. And I want to, educate people as well. We rarely give a 10-10 round. We're
someone has to win that round.
This is the theory.
Yeah.
You're a professional judge. There's two fighters fighting. Somebody did something, whether it's the smallest thing or whatever, that you have to find a winner. They don't want us giving 10-10 rounds.
So so we did the first one, the effective punch. What was the second one?
Effective aggressiveness.
Effective aggressive. So people understand already being a little bit more aggressive as a fighter, putting pressure, connecting. Now, this is one of the most important things that we see a lot of fighters. Whoa, he was going. So you covering yourself up as a fighter, and say my opponent's going to body shots, hitting me all over, anything. Do those count as points as well, Jack?
Not if you're blocking them. But if the punches were equal, okay, which guy was trying to win the fight? Was it the guy standing there and just blocking and doing defense?
The one that was being aggressive.
So he's the aggressor.
Yeah.
And if he's the one that's dictating the pace and where his ring generalship was better. You follow what I'm saying?
So people.
Now, if it's Floyd Mayweather type of defense, that guy's going to get some. If you get down to the defense, that kind of defense is effective defense.
So the fans can understand the generalship is moving around the ring properly, pivoting. Is that what you consider general?
But also dictating the pace of the fight and where you're going to do the exchanges, knowing how to get out of the corners, knowing how to stay out of trouble, and putting your opponent where you want your opponent.
Yeah.
That's good boxing skills.
One of the most important things that I want to ask you this, Jack, as a trainer, and I love the sport of boxing as well. And I know it might be there's a tough question I'm gonna ask you,
but
there's
nothing else limits.
Do you think there's a lot of favoritism as well that judges have towards another fighter, another opponent? Fans want to know this stuff, but you could say yes or no, Jack.
Listen,
because it's tough. Sometimes I see fights, I go, wait a minute, how did he lose? And I could judge. I mean, me as a trainer, I could judge a fight if he did well or not, no matter what. But some guys would say, "Whoa, wait a minute, he didn't do that. How did that judge give those points to that opponent or to that fighter?"
Listen, I love boxing. Boxing and hockey and whatever. God saved my life. I'd probably be still living in the same place in Brooklyn and getting in trouble. But we have problems. We have challenges in boxing, and all of the heads of all of the sanctioning bodies can tell you the same thing. We have an inconsistency problem. And part of the problem is we have people coming in that aren't as trained as well as others. Like we do the most, California does the most fights of anybody in the country. Other than us, it's Texas, Florida, New York, and Nevada. Other than those 5 states, everybody is like way behind us. And in fact, I don't know about this year, but until in the years prior, you could take those 4 other states and California still did more than all 4 of them put together.
Really?
Because we were the king of the club show, Reseda Country Club and Ed Holmes shows and all those places.
And, Anaheim and all that,
all that stuff. But they're catching up now. So, but the problem is there's 50 commissions and there's probably 90 commissions in the United States. There's 50 states. Each one has their own commission, but the tribal communities have their own commission. And if sometimes you get boxing people that don't really understand boxing, administrators or regulators that aren't boxing people, and they hire their friends and they hire whatever, and you don't know where everybody's getting trained.
Is that a problem right now that the commission is having, Jack?
The problem is that people aren't trained on the same wavelength. Now, there's something called the Association of Boxing Commissioners, the ABC, and you've been around this a million years. And the ABC was formed to help regulate boxing and give consistency through boxing. And what they've come up with is the unified rules for championship bouts, amongst many other things.
Yeah.
And we're out there now teaching all of these states, and the sanctioning bodies have us at their conventions to teach, so to get everybody on the same page. But it's a humongous job to get done, to get everybody really on the same page. And then you have people like, you see it here in the gym. You got some guys that dive into this and they give everything they have. And then you got the guys or gals that just are minimalist. They do minimum.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell everybody that being a boxing referee or a boxing judge is a part-time job with a full-time commitment.
You've basically, like what they do in the amateurs. One of my good friends, Delilah, she does one of the amateurs. She enjoys it, she loves it, and she volunteers to do it. She goes, we don't get paid. They just probably sometimes give us gas money, but I love it. So they have a regular job, just like you do, right, Jack?
Yeah, boxing. Listen, if you want to be a boxing referee,
you better have a job.
You better not be coming to this industry for the money, because we don't make a lot of money.
Yeah.
In fact, sometimes at the end of the year I'm negative, but I'm blessed to be able to do this.
Yeah.
I am still doing something at my age that I loved as a kid, and long after my job was over on the fire department, I still have the love of this sport and hockey and stuff like that, and I get to work in there with guys like you, the Warriors. Did everybody know I did your first fight?
No, nobody knew. So even though my record was 1 win and 3 losses, when I did it, when I won my first fight, oh man, I'm gonna be the next Arsenio Fritas. I'm gonna be knocked, because my first fight, Jack, I knocked the guy out in 18 seconds. After that, I lost my three fights. I did it as just try to see how the fighter felt, how it feels to be in there. I mean, the dream is, I'll probably become a world champion, but it wasn't for me, But I experienced it, but. For you to referee my fight, I correct myself. It wasn't the first fight. No, it was my second fight.
Second fight.
It was my second fight. But my pro debut was amazing. It was amazing. It was like, I had Joe Goose and Diego Corrales walk me out. It was amazing. Same thing, second fight. But after that, downhill. But, it was a great experience,
But Ricky, can I tell you something? You did something that people only dream of. And I tried to get my sons to have one fight in the amateurs at least. I couldn't, convince them. And my wife, a Latina, who's tougher than me any day of the week, she said, no, don't push them into it. But the reason I wanted them to get into it, because if you're doing the training of a boxer and you're really religiously training and you're doing everything you're supposed to do, and you're kicking the crap out of your sparring partners because you're in great shape, you're doing well, you're hitting the bags, making thwops when you're hitting those bags, and you feel great. And the realization hits you that, oh shit, the guy I'm fighting must be maybe just in good a shape as I am. And you still have the courage to climb through those ropes. What in life could be harder than that? Going for an interview with somebody. So I wanted my kids to experience that, because then everything else in life would have been easier.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I couldn't do it. So you accomplished doing that and you've made a career out of boxing from it. You're doing what God wants you to do. You're in the spot where you want, but at least you did it.
Well, see,
I never fought a pro fight. I wish I would have.
But you fought amateur.
I fought amateur.
But look, you did it. You've been in the ring. See, and I remember this going with Joe. Joe Goosen. When I'm speaking about Joe, is my mentor. I will see him, and we will go to fights. And I still remember one day. Jeremy Williams fought at the state line, and some commissioner walks in and says, "Oh, you can't do this." I go, he goes, "You been in the gym before?" He goes, "No." I go, "What do you do?" He goes, "Well, I'm a cop." I go, "Don't come and tell me how to do my job. Ask questions. Don't be aggressive. Learn how to, we're in the gym every day."
God bless you.
And to this day, Jack, I see commissioners that act so Gestapo and come in and say, "Well, hey, you can't do this." I go, "Hey, this is what we do every day in the gym. Have you ever been in the gym?" He goes, "No." And it's kind of upsetting because you could have someone come and tell me how to do my job that we do every day. And I go, "You wouldn't want me to come and tell you how to defend yourself on the street or what to do in the police station or any of that." And kind of, how can I say it, Jack? It's kind of overwhelming having someone come and tell us how to do our job that when we're in the gym every day, practicing the same thing over and over,
Man, I feel for you. And those same guys are trying to tell me and everybody else what to do. But I got to say, overwhelmingly, California State Athletic Commission is awesome.
Oh, they changed a lot. I love, what was his name? The head guy now. I want to get him in here. Andy Foster. Andy Foster's great.
Mark Relier.
Yeah,
Mark Relier fought.
Mark, I remember I was suspended by the commission for almost like 5-6 years, and we got along now thanks to Andy Foster and Tom Brown, who helped me lift my suspension because I was not allowed to work the corners in California for a while, and Mark was one part of that.
He went to bat for you?
No, he wasn't bad for it. He was against me.
Okay.
A lot of people were against me. It was over. I'll tell you the little story. So they had this little fight here in Reseda. And I still remember Matt Villanueva was one of our fighters. And my guy knocked out the guy. And normally, I follow into Joe's footsteps. And this is where boxing started changing a lot. We'll go inside the ring, and I picked up my fighter. And the referee, the commissioner, was so mad. He goes, "Get the F." He started swearing at me inside the ring. He goes, "Get the F out of here. You can't do that." And then me, I'm from the street. I'm not going to let no guy disrespect me. I want him to speak to me with respect like I would. And I started swearing him at back and this, that. So I got suspended. Oh, it was a big thing. It was a big thing. I remember. It was a big thing in California. So they suspended me. It got letter. Dan went to bat for me. We went in front of the court. So Mark and his other guys said that my guy knocked out the opponent and that I went over his body, that I stepped over his body and I went to go lift up which was all a lie. And it was everybody, all the commission against me. And I was suspended for almost over 5 years.
It was 5 years?
Yeah, Dan Goosen, everybody went. We went to court. Everything was crazy. I go, Dan Goosen's here for me. Because this is what I was trying to make a career out of, trying to be a trainer. And for a lot of...
What year was that?
This was 2003, around there,
I could tell you just exactly what happened. We had some... First of all, let me just tell you something. The current California State Athletic Commission...
Oh, it's the best, I think.
They don't agree with that kind of inspector that comes in like he's telling you what to do and, acting like a cop talking to some criminals.
Yeah.
We don't do that. Everybody tries to use the greatest people skills they possibly can. And Rick, do you see me threatening people?
No.
When I go in the dressing room, I ask them, please do this, please do that. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. They don't do it. Yeah. I'm going to do my job. But most of the guys can kick my old ass. So I'm not going to go threatening people and hiding behind the badge. Yeah. The Athletic Commission now does not do that either. Back then, we had a guy who was the director of the Athletic Commission that was run out of here. He was fired. Yeah. And that's the reason that those guys were like that. They were his little Gestapo.
Yep.
And I understand how you feel, and it's unfortunate that you got caught up in that. But California ran that guy out on a rail.
Oh, yeah.
And let me tell you something. His little bitches that worked for him, that were ratting and lying about you, were lying about
you
me and other guys.
I remember
and
all
guess
that.
what? I got suspended also.
Wow.
And it cost me money to go get a lawyer and prove them totally writing lies. And guess what? You know what they did? They said, you know what? We're just going to let it go. It happened a while ago. New commission now, just go. And I spent money on a lawyer.
Oh,
so
yeah.
look, I went through the same thing.
It was tough for me because I was not able to work in California. I was losing money because I was working in the corners with Joe. That was my school and my experience working with Joe. And I was not able to work. Unfortunately, I was not able to work a lot of championship fights and to get a lot of experience through those because I was suspended. But years later, and this is just recently, maybe in the past 4 or 5 years, Andy Foster looked up my file and he goes, long time ago, and he forgave me.
Andy Foster is the man. No, the man of second chances.
Oh.
He has given so many people.
And he fought.
Chances. He this video.
I didn't know that he was
MMA. He looked like a wild beast. I wouldn't want to fight him, man. He gave Ray Corona a second chance when Ray got suspended by USA Boxing.
Really?
Yeah. He's given so many people second chances. It's totally different now. I can't go back. But the same people you had problems with, so did I. They were all guys hiding behind their badge. They weren't. One of them was a boxing person, but the rest of them weren't boxing people. Come on, they wouldn't talk to you like that in a bar. Yeah. So they're hiding behind their badge and they're telling you, it's wrong. It's
like
wrong.
Me, Jack, I will speak to everybody with respect.
We all do.
And a lot of people think because they see you on TV, they think they know you. And they come and try to pat you on the. I go, hey. And then because you try to defend yourself or because they feel like they could talk to you in a certain way and you defend yourself, they call you an asshole or you this. No, look, we're human beings just like you. We want to be respected. You speak to me with respect and I'll speak to you with respect.
100%.
This including fans or commissioners and all that. Look, I look up to Andy Foster, seriously. And when I started looking more up to Andy Foster was when this boxing league started probably about
TCL?
2 years. TCL. Thanks to Tom Brown, I brought it up to Tom. He goes, "Look, Ricky, speak to Andy. I'll talk to Andy." And I spoke to Andy, and Andy was so open-minded. He goes, "Look, Ricky," and he saw me at a fight. He goes, "Hey, how's that TCL code?" He goes, "How about we bring that to California?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm interested. Let me talk to whoever." As soon as he said, I go, "Man, my respects." Because I thought he was going to be a jerk and say, "Nah, we're not interested."
Well, that's what you were subjected to earlier. Of course you're going to think that.
Yeah, so Andy Foster, I go, okay, man. He's open-minded. And at that time, I didn't know Andy Foster was a MMA fighter.
Yeah.
Because I said, how kick is that he has like an ass.
he boxed also a little bit.
Yeah.
And he refereed also a little bit.
Like Joe would say, I wouldn't want to find him in a dark alley.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what going back to the judging and all that, Jack.
Yeah, but we went off on a tangent. Oh man,
but it was great. But see this, but I remember that I got to go back to what we were talking about. So Jack, when you see these judges going, they're 75, 80 years old, they can barely walk, and they're judging a fight. Do you think that's an issue? Is that a problem, Jack? Or do you think we should have younger people that have experience? Because now that I know how you guys balance the points and the leadership, ring leadership, the aggressiveness, now I have an understanding now. Because normally I would say, okay, my guy's just whooping this guy's eyes, but with a jab or right hand, clear punches, going to the body. But now the fans and myself have a little bit of understanding how could judging.
Let me interrupt and say one thing. So most fights, Stevie Wonder could judge because there's a guy that's winning and it's guys are losing, right?
Correct.
But it's the fights like Marco Antonio Barrera against Morales, where it's punch for punch and back and forth. That's where you really got to be able to understand the criteria and insert that. And it's always the close, not always, it's most of the time the close fights that create the most controversy and stuff like that. And when it comes to you, with the question you're asking about old guys and all that stuff, I think it should be done. Listen, I'm not staying around past when people don't want me anymore. I'm always conscious of how I'm doing in there. If I ever feel I can't protect the boxers, like I can't physically jump in and wrestle somebody to the ground if I have to, I'm getting out. Or if I can't move the way I used to, which is coming, it's getting close. I'm getting up there. I'm getting out, and I really feel this.
You really want to get out?
I do not want to get out of it. I'm saying I owe it to the sport. Ricky, I'm a knucklehead kid from Brooklyn.
Yeah.
I've walked the Great Wall of China because of boxing. I've been all over the world because of boxing. So I owe it back to boxing, and I think all of us do, unless you got in because you're somebody's son or somebody's whatever. I owe it to boxing for what it's done for me. I owe it to pay it back. And when I'm not going to go past my prime, I'm not going to go past when I can't do the job anymore, and I'm going to get out.
Do you think?
But I think all people should. I don't know about an age requirement, but I really believe that there should be physical and mental evaluations. Physical for the referees and mental, but mental evaluations for the judges.
But do you think it's kind of like a fighter, Jack? Some fighters don't know how to quit. They'll still
100%. 100%. It's so hard. Look, it's really hard to leave something that you love. And look, it's just like you, Rick. I'm going to tell you something I heard. I stole it from a football official. Tom Taylor told me about it, and I took a look at it. It's great. So people ask me, what's it like being a pro referee? I go, man, I love it. It's just like so much of my life. They go, what do you mean? I said, well, when I'm at home with my family, I'm thinking about boxing. When I'm in church, I'm thinking about boxing. Wow. When I'm driving in my car, I'm thinking about boxing. And they just don't understand, just because we're only there a couple of days a month, it's every day, all day, right? You're just thinking about it because you love it. So now you're asking me to just stop cold turkey. It's hard to do that. Don't want to get anybody hurt because of my ego and stuff like that. But a lot of guys can't walk away from it. And
what's so hard for a top commissioner to say, hey, just sit down, be a fan?
There's got to be a process. There's got to be an evaluation. And
because I've seen even in Vegas, you know me, thanks to Tom, I sit sometimes in the corral and I'm looking at these judges barely getting out to move and go sit down and then come back and judge. When I see someone like that, I go, okay, I think I should get some.
That's a double-edged sword, and I'm going to tell you why, okay? If the guy's got his full mental capacity, trust me, he knows a lot more than a young judge that really is so excited. He's probably not even focused on what's going on sometimes, you know? So it's got to be done on an individual basis. Like there was there was a great referee in England, and I can't think of his name right now. He reffed until easily into his 70s, and he was sharp, in great shape. I don't think I'm going to make it there into my 70s because all the injuries from the fire department and stuff. But there are individual bases where guys can do it. So it's really got to be done on a one-on-one evaluation with everybody. I respect, there's judges, referees I know that have stopped because they felt it was time to stop, and they sat down and became judges for a few years and then retired. Yeah. That's more likely in my plan than going on to where somebody has to tap me on the shoulder and say, hit the bricks. You know what I mean?
You don't want to be told.
I don't want to be told. I want to be respectful and go when when I should go. But there's just so many entities that people come into this sport around the world. Everybody should be evaluated. It really should, because it's not good.
So now going to refereeing, Jack.
You got any situations you want to ask me about? If people are curious about, I can talk about that too.
Oh, of course.
I'm sorry for interrupting.
No worries. I mean, I would ask. Just sometimes I don't pay no mind to. But those little questions that I asked you about, when I was suspending, all that, you answer everything for me. Mark and Andy Foster, to me, who run.
We also have a great commission. Ronda Rousey's mother's on it.
Oh, really?
There's ex-fighters. Yeah. I mean, Benny Urquidez's sister-in-law, Arnold's wife, was on it for years.
Really?
John Carvelli. All these people understood boxing. Andy didn't do it. The state did it, but they put together a
great team.
Yeah. John Farrison loved boxing. Been around with boxing for a long time, and it slowly changed into a really great commission. That got rid of that old guy, got Andy in there, and it's been a great.
Be honest with you, I'm happy that Andy's on it, because, being lifted and be able to work in California now is great. I love it. I feel like I'm not trapped anymore, because I felt like I was in debt with the commissioner, because they were trying to charge me like $15,000. Where am I going to get $15,000? And I was going to pay that day just to work, because that's how I was making my living. I'm not making a lot of money. I'm like you, Jack. I'm not in this sport for the money. I love it. I love teaching. I barely got, God willing, I have my first future world champion, whose name is Hamza Shiraz.
I saw his knockout win Wasn't that very
Yeah,
nice?
it was in Saudi Arabia. He, 11th round knockout. But I'm not doing it for the money. I love it because I want to build world champions. And some people do this for the money. Jack, I love, just like you, I love it. I come every day, and it's hard to make a living off boxing. It's really hard.
Extremely hard to make a living.
Unless you're wealthy and everything and do it for the fun.
How many of all the boxers? How many of them make it to the elite level that really make generational money and make that kind of money?
It's so hard.
Rare. It's so
like
rare.
It's like people say, look, and this is one of the toughest things in the boxing, in my profession, Jack, as a trainer. We invest hundreds of hours to a fighter that's barely making minimum money. We spend months and months, and then he makes, say, 300 grand, 30 grand. That's nothing. If you add that hourly, what you get paid is really nothing. So when people say, well, you do it for, no, I don't. I do not do this for the money. If we get to a position where my fighter's making a lot of money, that's
Ricky,
that's icing on the cake, they say.
People are misinformed. Me and the Lions that I roam with, referees, we don't do this for the money. We do this for the love of the sport. And man, like you, pennies on the dollar. And if people knew how little I made for these championship fights where guys were making 10 and 20 million each, and what I got paid for it, for the responsibility and the authority you cover. But I feel blessed to be in there with these warriors and have this opportunity. And if somebody would have told me when I was 20 and I was trying to be a fighter, and 20, whatever it is, and someday you're going to be a referee, you're going to be in the ring with it, I would say, man, sign me up. I don't care all the negative. I don't care what I got to go through. And that's what it's like now. It's not for the money.
I just got a call.
But there are people that's all about the money.
Oh, yeah. I just got a call, and they left me a dirty message, and I got so hot.
I'm sorry. Was it me?
No, not you. It was somebody left a message saying, hey, you and Ryan Garcia, and you making this much money, you should come and drop a bag of money into a neighborhood. I go, what's wrong with this idiot? He really thinks I'm making a lot of money. Listen,